Hey, what's happening, y'all? I'm coming back with another vid on the Undisputed Championship Series videos. Before I get started with this particular fight, I have to correct the record on something that I overheard on a couple videos. One, the question is, was Roy Jones Jr. ever an undisputed champion? The answer is yes, he was. Okay, the reason why the reason how that came about is that he won the undisputed championship fight at light heavyweight against Reggie Johnson. Okay, uh, now, I know that's another video, but I'll make this real quick. The reason how he became an undisputed champion is not only that he beat Reggie Johnson to capture the third belt, was the IBF belt at the time. He was the WBC champion, and after he got captured the WBC title, there is Michael Zuski, who was the WBO champion at the time, who had, the WBO championship was unrecognized. He beat Virgil Hill to capture the WBA and the IBF titles, along with the lineal championships. Okay, as soon as Michael Zuski captured those titles, there was talks to getting for him to fight Roy Jones Jr. for a unification bout for the WBC along with the IBF and the WBA and of course the less regarded belt, the WBO title back then, along with the lineal title. So Michael Zuski turned down the fight. He was offered $5 million, I believe, to take that fight, come to the States, and he didn't want to do it. So thus, him turning down the fight forced Michael Zuski to vacate the WBA and the IBF belts. Okay, so that's why the belts were scattered, and Roy Jones was able to pick up the WBA belt from beating Lou DeVell. And then after a couple of defenses with his unified titles, he beat Reggie Johnson for the IBF title. And that's how he became the undisputed champion. Yes, he was pound for pound rated #1 back then. And yes, it's in the record books. He captured all three titles. So it is what it is. Okay? So I just wanted to correct that record. He was the undisputed champion. All right. Now, on to this fight here. Ricardo Mayorga versus Cory Spinks for the undisputed welterweight title. Okay? Now, how did this fight come about? Now, I look at this as very similar to Ndongo and Terrence Crawford in one way. And let me tell you why. Because Ricardo Mayorga, he burst onto the scene as an unknown fighter. Okay? He burst into this scene. He got a WBA title shot against Andrew Lewis. God rest his soul, RIP. In their first fight, it ended in no contest due to a clash of heads. A cut. Andrew Lewis sustained a severe cut, which stopped the bout. And then WBA ordered an immediate rematch between the two. In that particular fight, Mayorga knocked out Andrew Lewis out upset because of the fact that Lewis was somewhat a bit unknown because he had some fights with the likes of James Page and whatnot. So Mayorga knocked out Andrew Lewis to capture the WBA title. And then several months later, he was in a unification bout with Vernon Forrest, the same Vernon Forrest who beat Shane Mosley to capture the WBC and the lineal title and the Ring Magazine titles. Okay? In that particular fight, Mayorga was at like the 8-9 or 10-8 or 8-1, 9-1, or 10-1 underdog. Favorite. I'm sorry. Let me take that back. In this fight going into the fight against Vernon Forrest, Mayorga was like the 8-1 or 9-1 or even 10-1 underdog against Vernon Forrest. Okay, because if you look at it, Vernon Forrest is an accomplished amateur. He was an unbelievably skilled fighter. RIP, rest in soul. God rest his soul, Vernon Forrest. Many people thought that Mayorga didn't have a chance against this guy. And what happened in that fight? Mayorga upset at Vernon Forrest, knocked him out. The only knockout that Vernon Forrest ever suffered in his career. Okay? He did that within several months, capturing the WBA title from Andrew Lewis. And then what happened? After that, he was ordered to do a rematch with Vernon Forrest a few months later. And he won that rematch in a majority decision. And then 5-6 months later, he was in an undisputed championship fight with Cory Spinks. Wow. And this guy did it all within a course of 1 year. He didn't even have any soft touch-ups, and he did it. Yeah, he did become the undisputed champion. But to say that people are naive to think that, we should be patient and wait for fights to build up, I don't buy that argument. Okay? I don't buy it. And let me get on to Cory Spinks, how he was able to capture the IBF title. Okay, when Cory Spinks captured the IBF title, he went to somebody's backyard in Italy. He beat Michele Picciariello. Okay, he captured the IBF title from him in his backyard, and some people felt that that fight was ended, it was a controversial fight because some people felt that Spinks had lost that fight, but you know, Spinks got the decision. Okay, after he got the IBF title, got the decision, he gets his next fight was against Ricardo Mayorga, a unification fight for the undisputed title. And going into this fight, Spinks was a pretty big underdog because after what people saw, what Mayorga was able to do to Bernard Forrest and Andrew Lewis, yeah, they thought that Spinks didn't have a chance against Mayorga. He didn't have a chance. And what did Spinks do? He showed everybody that you can't count out the underdog. He thoroughly outboxed Mayorga, made him look so one dimensional. And yes, he was the guy who pretty much exploited all of Mayorga's weaknesses, other than the fact that Felix Trinidad later exploited the body attack, which Mayorga is very vulnerable to. But it is what it is. Okay, so. Mayorga, after the fight, the aftermath, he felt he got robbed on the cards. I felt that he lost that fight from the start to the end. Yes, he had some success in some rounds, but he just wasn't effective in cutting off the ring against Spinks. He just, he didn't employ the right tactics. He didn't make any adjustments to stop Spinks' mobility and in ring movement, whatnot. What Mayorga should have done is go for the body attack. He just didn't do it. He was just headhunting too much. So that's the mistake he made. Of course, after the fight, he, never was the same fighter after that. From a psychological standpoint, what I mean by that is that he didn't show any discipline for the sport. He didn't care too much about making weights for maybe some fights. Like one particular fight with Jose Rivera, it was for the WBA regular title. He got a media shot for another title after he lost his unified and lineal titles to Cory Spinks, but he didn't even make the weight for that fight. He came in 6 pounds over the weight limit, and people were shocked by it. Of course, that ended up, his championship, well, the second tier belt fight with him and Jose Rivera ended up getting canceled, and he had to go up to middleweight. So, yeah, he just didn't have any regard for the sport after that. From psychological standpoint, for him, it was more about getting a payday. As far as Cory Spinks, yeah, he's able to make a couple successful title defenses at welterweight, and then he moved up to like middleweight and became a champion there, and then eventually he challenged Jermaine Taylor for the unified middleweight title. So, yeah, okay. So I mean, again, and I mentioned in my previous video that Don King was the guy who headlined this card, because he was promoting both Ricardo Mayorga and Cory Spinks. Yeah, and it's the one thing I have to say about Don King, man. As as ruthless as a crook that he was to his fighters, man, he put on damn good fights. He gave fights that us fans wanted to see. He put on the most undisputed fights that I've ever seen in a modern time. Okay, Bob Arum, I mean, yeah, he had some success. I give Bob Arum credit. But when have we seen any of the promoters like Don King's work with other promoters that they despise so much to get an undisputed championship fight? No one's done it, except for Don King. So my thing is, these promoters and these managers / promoters, whoever they are, the Al Haymans and the Bob Arum. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, Bob Arum, I know he's done this before with Don. He's worked with Don, even though he despised him, and Lou DiBella. You guys need to get together and make these fights happen. Make these unification fights happen for the fans. God's sakes, we need to get back to the old school way how boxing is done as far as championship fights. We need to get back to that. Now, before I close this video out, I gotta say one thing, and this was brought up that some people, some guy saying that I'm arrogant, given the fact that I bring up boxing history to score points. No, first of all, I'm arrogant out of self-defense. Number one. Number two, the reason why I bring up history to in a way that you don't like it is because the fact that you and your buddies like to praise these modern day fighters, which is good. You guys can do that, but to say they're this and that, although they haven't done many great things as other best fighters has done, you guys choose to shit on them. Thus, you shit on history. When you guys do things like that, yes, I'm going to respond and I'm going to retaliate. And yes, I'm going to defend the best great fighters. Okay? So the bottom line is don't quote history knowing that, don't use history as a way to try to propagate your modern day fighters, knowing that you don't have any knowledge of what the past great fighters have done. Just don't do that. Okay, in fact, don't shit on them, especially if you don't know anything about them or their records and what they were able to accomplish in dire situations. So, with that said, Yeah. So in closing, this was a championship fight that was done immediately with either one of these men had taken any mandatory defenses, whatnot, or any other voluntary defenses other than a championship fight. So they did it in a rapid time. So if Ricardo Mayorga and Cory Spinks can do this, and so can the other fighters today. So can Julius Ndongo and Terrence Crawford. So can Gennady Golovkin. And like I said in one of my previous videos, Golovkin had the opportunity to go ahead and go for unification of the Undisputed Championship with Saunders. No sanctioned body was standing in his way to do that, but he opted out of it. And I was disappointed that he did that. Okay, I was very unhappy that he did it. And once as I understand that in his situation, he's like, you know what, I don't think I can do this much longer, so I'm gonna go for the big money fight when I have it. So that's his prerogative. That's what he wants to do. So yeah. So again, y'all, just appreciate the fact that we fans want to see these unification fights, and it's been so long since we have seen one. And the fact is, yes, the sanctioned bodies have been doing some dirt for such a long period of time. They've done it for many decades, going back to the 60s. I agree with that assessment. But the fact is, it's been 11 years. It's about time that we had enough. It's about time we stand up to these people, man. We had enough. We've waited too long. We waited too long where the sanctioned bodies refuse to work with each other to some degree. We waited too long where certain promoters are, refuse to work with each other with some degree, and fighters refuse to fight each other unless they get certain advantages. We're tired of it. Now is the time when we have two fighters who are the best in the division who said that we're going to fight. I want to fight this guy. Let's make it happen right now. That's what I appreciate. And that's what I want the IBF to come to this senses and say, you know what? Let's do it. Because they themselves have a rule that stipulates that unification vows supersedes mandatories. That is the bottom line. Okay? So anyways, I know I jabbered on a little bit here. What do you guys think about the outcome or the aftermath of the Ricardo Mayorga versus Cory Spinks fight for the undisputed welterweight title? And this was dated back in 2003. And did you think that Cory Spinks thoroughly outboxed Mayorga? Do you think Mayorga was actually robbed on the cards, which he claimed he thought he was, which I didn't see he got robbed? Yeah, so let me know what your thoughts on this, and do you agree with me or do you disagree with me what I just said in this video? I'm out. Peace.